Hello everyone, myself Akshay Guru Bhaiya, faculty, Plutus Academy. So here we are for a new topic of geography optional. And in this lecture, I will start with the one question. Can you tell me the formula for gravitational force or the constant of gravity? Yes, guys, this is geography optional lecture, no doubt, but I'm asking you this question, it's not for the purpose of say scientific study, it's just to connect our topic, say this quantitative revolution itself. Now, as you know, geography is a subject which basically deals with say somehow those phenomena or those aspects which are quite physical in nature, quite non-living, or somehow which is not directly connected with us. Just to remind your school days geography, right? During that time you might have confused about why this subject is there, what is the exact need of this subject, that you are not going to use this subject anyways. It's just because we were not exactly aware about how to use the knowledge of geography, right? Somehow like the math, yes, you know the utility of math. Somehow like the science, you know the utility of science, okay? And for other subjects also, history or anything like. But for the case of geography, the subject which is somehow more subjective in the nature, more descriptive on the count, yes, which is having lack of generalization. Now what it means for generalization, I will explain you later. But yes, it do lack of generalization, and still it is a part of our study. That was the same question which was say intriguing in many geographers also, or even policymakers also, that if this subject is not having say a direct utility for a mankind as such, then what is the need to study this subject? And it creates a kind of say a disturbance in the overall geographical studies. Okay, and with this topic, say we are going to understand what kind of say the disturbances that before this revolution and what kind of effect it has then lead to geography into. Okay, so let's begin with this topic, quantitative revolution. Now, just as you can see, it is what say in terms of quantity, or it is like in sense of some mathematical calculations, right? Geography is not a subject which is having a kind of some which can be quantified as such, right? At least what you have studied till date, the physical geography, geomorphology, climatology, say oceanography or whatever, you hardly need to remember any formula as such, right? And just to compare maths, you have to remember number of formulas. So this quantitative revolution, or say the quantitative in the sense it is specifically some with arithmetic or some kind of statistical analysis, right? And yes, it is again having this term revolution. Can you differentiate between revolution and evolution? These two differential phenomena of human society. So over here we are concerned with the revolution as such. Now revolution is simply what? A change, okay? A change in society or in any aspect of society which is say in a very small frame of time. Like say for example French Revolution, right? Or like say for example a Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. So over there say a huge political change, okay, happens just within a small frame of human existence, and that's why those phenomena are to be known as revolutions. In the same way, this quantitative revolution, it is again a change in the overall life of geography or the approach of geography in very small period of time, which we will be say dealing with in a very small period of time, and that too led by this quantitative approach or statistical approach, arithmetic approach, mathematical approach, whatever you may consider. Okay, so quantitative revolution is a sudden change or a drastic change led by a quantitative approach in geography. I think you are having a clear idea about this particular concept. Okay, just like say basic idea about it. We are going to have a look over on the technicals also, but that is what it means by quantitative revolution. So now that is the time for revolution. It is Bolshevik revolution in Russia, 1918. So like in the same way, there was a need felt. Okay, these are all pictures of revolutions as such, quick, sudden, okay, and a drastic change. So during that time, after specifically Second World War, there was a need arise to change the approach in geography. It's just because, as already we have discussed or you have experienced also, that geography as a subject is having very description in nature. It does not have a specific formula that can be used to solve the problems as such. Like say for example now, just like say whenever you say launching a rocket, right? There are some typical formulas are over there. What kind of what is the peak limit of ceiling limit of say mass, height, or weight, or anything as such. So by putting those values, you will find what is the maximum or minimum level you can say bear with. But for the case of geography, which is a social science as such, you are not having that scope. And that subjective nature of geography was actually criticized, see, during the Second World War, right? So that phase of transition was, say, already in operation since a long, but yes, it was mainly or severely criticized during the, and say, even the later occurrences of the Second World War. That during the war and after say the war, there was a drastic say tragedy was there, a huge tragedy was it, in fact the Second World War. So it led to a huge damage, loss of life, poverty, inequality, and all. There was a need for resurrection as such, and every other branch of science was say supporting that particular rejuvenation, say by its own approach. But geography on that count was not active much. Okay, was not much active, and that's why it was became a target point for many say scientists as such to criticize geography. And what happened then? Then it led to in the 1949 a World Social Congress, where there was a resolution which was say passed as such with the two major objectives. The one which is we should study that subject here onwards, that it should have a subject matter relevant for society, right? Relevant for society. That means if there is a poverty, that subject should have some kind of say solution for that matter. Solution, the analysis also, okay, empirical evidences also, analysis also, and solutions also, or unemployment, or say deforestation, or whatever like the way, right? So what are the problems of society? Those problems have to be dealt effectively by that subject. That is what the very first say resolution that was accepted. And second, the approach has to be absolute in a changed socio-economic situation. Okay, that subject should not be studied which is having say outdated approach as such. So geography was under threat due to this kind of say new understanding or new requirements or preconditions for determination of subject. Geography, which was say having a societal connectivity, no doubt it is absolutely having a societal connectivity under human geography, or even physical geography is having say significance in the overall human aspect. But yes, say typically at the contemporary time, or say during that period of time also, geography was unable to provide a solution directly. Okay, and that's why geography was under a threat. Unlike mathematics, science, which are all having say connections with the society, in fact, those provided the way for the further development. Geography too had provided the way, but not directly, but rather in a indirect format. Okay, so this resolution, okay, in 1949, it was a drastic in the overall life of the geography as a subject. Just because, just have a look over what are the consequences of that. That after this social conference, okay, World Social Conference, that there was a, yes, over here America and Canadian university and many European universities, they dropped the geography as a subject of their universities. It was not even considered as a subject to be studied in university. So it led to closing down of many branches or departments of geography in many universities, and that was a threat for a geography as a subject in itself. Just because the study of geography or the students of geography or any subject, they are the lifelines, okay, of that subject. And if the universities are closing that particular branch or that department, that means the whole root of the subject is now going to amputate. And that's why say it was under a severe threat. Then Second World War, the devastation that it led to, so it was again a reason, yes, at the first thing, then closing down of this universities. In fact, Houston, okay, Barrow, he was a president of American geographer. So it was like, say, his statement was there that geography is not having that understanding, okay, or it should not be considered as a subject of university studies. So you can understand the intensity of threat on the geography or how geography was targeting during that time. So Shekhar, he was one of the prominent geographers. He also promoted nomothetic approach. Now, what this nomothetic you will be we will be discussing the human geography as such, but say somehow it is say more towards a generalization, or that means a universal study, okay, or like a universal studies. That means, like say for example, science or say gravity as such. Yes, as we have taken the same example. So gravity, you will find it is say somehow same across the Earth surface or even in the universe also. Right? We do consider the same value, even though we know that gravity is more on the pole in comparison with the equator, but still what we considered that formula G equals to Gm1 m2 by r square. Right? And that is what exactly the case is. Over here, this nomothetic approach, that means we should consider it as in a generalized way or a universal way. Okay, that is what it means by generalization. So it was actively promoted by say Fred Shekhar. So he was a prominent geographer, and then geographers themselves wanted geography to be at par with the physical science. Okay, physical science, those all are physics, chemistry, math, and those things, right? So, and yes, one of the long-ranging dragged war, Vietnam War, which lead to significant or which lead to a severe impact on say overall human development as such, poverty, unemployment, human rights violation, and all those. And geography was just unable to answer all these things. Women rights and everything as such. So geography was unable to answer this, and thus there was a need to have a revolution in the subject. If that revolution or say a drastic change in geography would not happen say within a small frame of time, you would rather find the geography as a dead, okay, or difficult to survive in that situation. And that's why this thing was say in operation as a quantitative revolution. In our life also, don't you think that same principle is applicable, right? At one or the other time, we have to take some drastic changes, bring out some drastic changes in ourselves, in our strategy, in our approach also. while say preparing for UPSC itself. You have to say, if after consistent failure, you have to have some say a drastic change, a revolutionary change you have to say bring in your study, and then you will find that everything is all well, right? So this quantitative revolution is just like one of the way actually to bring out that kind of change, right? What exactly it led to, we will be discussing. Okay, so just as I told you, just always try to connect this theoretical knowledge with the say your day-to-day life, and then you will find that topic is very easy to keep in your mind, and you will find a kind of connect with the topic also. Okay, so that is what always a good strategy to connect it with the day-to-day affairs. I think everyone is clear with the basics of quantitative evaluation, why it found its a need for, or why there was a need arise to bring in it. Okay, so quantitative evaluation. Now, yes, basics of quantitative evaluation. Basics. Basic in the sense what it means by definition, the term was actually coined by, right? So the phase of quantitative evaluation was actually started so earlier, say in the beginning of the 20th century itself. Okay, it was started so earlier, but say the overall codification, the definition, and the real coining of the term quantitative revolution was actually come into say being in a later phase. Okay, so this term, it was coined by the Burton in 1963, and it was actually in the peak time, say this quantitative evaluation was actually during the peak time. Okay, so it was coined by Burton in 1963, and do keep these things in mind. Okay, whenever you will be writing an answer, you need to mention this kinds of thing, and you will find number of questions. Okay, this topic is much important from the UPSC perspective, in the sense if you have gone through the previous year question paper, you will find number of questions. Okay, I am repeating, number of questions were already asked on this topic, quantitative revolution. Okay, so Burton in 1963. Now, what it is the depth, how you are just going to define it as simple. Okay, in the simplest way possible. Quantitative revolution is the application of arithmetic, statistical, okay, and the physical laws, okay, theorems and proofs. The application of statistic and mathematical techniques, theorems and proof in the understanding of geographical system is called as quantitative revolution. It's called as quantitative revolution. Yes, what we discussed is absolutely the definition is also same, right? That when geography, okay, just in order to understand what exactly it is, so you can simply write geography plus mathematics or arithmetic is equals to quantitative evaluation. Okay, so that is as simple as to remember it, right? Even if you write in the exam, you will find or the examiner will get to know, yes, you are having that clear idea about it, what it exactly means. Okay, so quantitative evaluation. So you will find a intensive use of data over in this quantitative, during the time of quantitative evaluation in the geography. You will find many formulas, those were devised like during the same time, like a gravity model of migration. Okay, gravity model of migration है, या von Thunen's model of agriculture development है, या transportation है, or say Weber's model of industrial development है. You will find those formulas or those principles are absolutely based on some kind of quantitative development or understanding. Zipf's models hai, ya primate city, whatever, like we will be discussing those things also. So these are all categorized under quantitative revolution. Okay, so I think everyone is clear with the definition. Then methodology. What kind of methodology then does it include? It is as simple as, right? You are not supposed to remember or keep these things in mind. Okay, but what I'm repeating again, in geography you are not supposed to keep everything in mind. Okay, what you need to connect the things. When you able to connect the things now, you will find that the load of keeping those things in mind or memorizing is automatically getting less. Okay, so as we discussed that quantitative evaluation is geography plus mathematics. So what approach? It should be mathematical, it should be statistical, it should be like in a say somehow in Laws of physics also, yes, wherever possible. For example, gravity model, as I told you, here, the same principle of gravity, G equals to m1 m2 by r square, it was converted into a migrational intensity. How to calculate the migrational intensity? So, like say, it is like say, migration population equals to population of P1, population of P2. That means population of source region, population of destination region divided by the distance of separation between them. Law of physics, absolutely, you will find it is having direct connectivity with it over here. Okay, so this thing or cybernetics, it is somehow more technical, but cybernetics is what the mechanism of self-regulation. Okay, the mechanism of self-regulation, just like our body is what a self-regulating mechanism. You will find the blood is moving, getting pumped by the heart. Okay, it is reaching to the say your head, mind also, and to the toes also, right? So that is what the self-regulating mechanism, or whenever you find ill, after some time you will find you are getting recovered also. That is what is cybernetic in the sense, right? So this philosophy was also being used. Then neoclassical economics, yes, Weber's model of industrial development, Losch model of industrial development, or urbanization model, or those models, you will find they are all having connectivity with the say this models of economics, and that is how the methodology of quantitative revolution. It is methodology. Okay, so I don't think you need to remember those methodologies as such. Statistical, mathematics, law of physics, cybernetic, that is what, and economics also, right? Just because economics, you will find kind of calculations involved, right? So you can connect it with the economics also. Okay, then you do remember, guys, in geography, always that geography is incomplete without the geographers. In the same way, your answer would be incomplete in the absence of those names of the geographers also, right? If you are writing about quantitative revolution, but you haven't mentioned any names, okay, or you haven't mentioned the names of Bernard, you haven't mentioned the names of Chorley, you haven't mentioned the names of the Schaffer, in that case, you will find, say, you are getting less marks. The reason being, it's just because geography is a kind of subjective subject, right? As we discussed even earlier. The thing is, in subjective subject, every individual's opinions and their contributions are of much importance. Okay, so do always keep it in mind. For writing an answer in geography, you have to remember the names of geographers. That will give you an additional edge. Okay, just go through the topper's answer copy, just go through any lectures as such, you will find the same thing. And whenever, even just try on yourself also, you will be getting more marks for sure, 100%. Okay, and I have stated you the reasons also why there is a need to remember the names of geographer. So always in any concept as such, you need to remember the names of that particular geographer. Now here, just cannot forget the name of those geographers. Schaffer, as I already mentioned, right? Ackermann sir, or Neil Harvey, right? Harvey, or say Chorley, right? This Chorley, he was one of the prominent quantitative revolutionists. Then Haggett, you will find all these are, okay, this is one the Haggett is. So these are all the geographers which contributed immensely for this short-term revolutionary change. Okay, and that's why they are having all praise to be with them. Okay, you need to keep those things in mind. Okay, and mention in the answer also. Okay, so Neil Harvey, then Fred Schaffer, okay, then Haggett, then Chorley, and then Ackermann. These are, you can remember additional names also, okay, with those mentioned theories also. Now, as you know, for gravity also, when gravity can be considered as a universal value, G, small g equals to 9.8, right, 9.8 meter per second square. That is what that universal value, okay, of that small g constant, gravity constant. Now, we can consider it as, when we consider the whole earth as a sphere or a uniform on the ground. Generalize, what it means by generalize, that means wherever you go, you will find the same value. Though it doesn't, but still you will find the same value. That is what a generalization, that is what a universalization, right? Now, for the case of universalization, always remember you need to take some assumptions granted. Okay, that means you have to consider, or you have to remove irregularities, and consider the whole thing as uniform. Not only in the case of Earth, but in all aspects. Okay, in all aspects, human behavior also, or say the overall nature of surface, the overall distributions of minerals, or like the way. So over here, as we discussed, this quantitative revolution is mainly led by, say, the quantitative approach. It should have its own assumptions to, say, lead to a concrete say result as such, or concrete formula as such, or concrete, say, final solution as such. And that's why there are some assumptions also. And like, say, the man is economic and rational, the very first. That means or irregularities in the behavior of the man have been avoided. Okay, you know that every human being is having his own understandings, his own approach to deal with the same problem at the same moment of time, right? So, like, say, if you consider man as an economic and rational, that means you can say simply, okay, you can say simply say avoid that kind of irregularity and make the overall behavior of the human, say, as a uniform, okay, generalized. Then man has infinite knowledge. So yes, if you consider this thing, automatically, say, formalizations of the man's behavior can be possible. Okay, so you can avoid the poverty, you can say solutionize the unemployment also, and like the way. Okay, are you getting this thing? How this quantitative revolution is, say, able to connect the problems of the society, or trying to solve the problems of society. Okay, then space or environment is isotropic. Isotropic, it means it is simply uniform in all direction. Okay, uniform in all direction. In all direction, isotropic. So that means that we are considering, or we are avoiding all irregularities on the Earth's surface. That we have considered Earth's surface as a plane, and that's why what is the condition over here? The same condition or the factors are operating over here also, having the same intensity. That is what the nature, we will be discussing it. Okay, so isotropic surface. There is no place for normative question. The normative question, that means a highly subjective in nature, like, say, feelings, like, say, emotion, like, say, respect. Okay, like, say, values, like, say, overall emotions also. You will find this quantitative revolution does not consider this. Why? The reason being, the reason is how one can quantify emotions. Do you have any kind of, say, formula or any kind of scale or any kind of, say, the approach to quantify emotions or value or principles or anything as such? Those mentioned over here, normative values to be known as, right? So that's why, in order to avoid this kind of, say, irregularities or, say, the kind of difficulty, it rather does not consider any of this. Okay, then assume the prices to be the same everywhere. Yes, so on whichever part of the surface you are, you will find the same price, okay, of those commodities. Okay, and this is how, say, quantitative revolution, assuming this, is trying to solve the problems of society. Okay, or trying to be more generalized, trying to be more universalized. Okay, so these are assumptions, you need to keep them in mind. Next, phases. Now, the phases of quantitative revolution, as I told you in earlier, say, this process was started well before the Second World War. It was, say, during the beginning of the 20th century, 1900, 1910 to, say, somewhere afterwards, you will find this phase was an active phase. Okay, or it was started in the real sense. Like, say, for example, the very first stage, it was the Genesis phase, the siege of origin. Genesis means origin, right? So it was, say, 19th century and even up to 1950, Second World War, you will find this phase was in development. Von Thunen was one of the prominent in the sense, okay, pioneer in the sense that he led to this quantitative approach in operation, real-time geography operation as such. Then the second phase, which is the phase of peak, which is the phase of zenith. Okay, it was, say, 50s to 70s. It was ranging for 50s to 70s. That this quantitative revolution was in the, say, developing phase during this time, and later declining phase in post 70s. That after 17, a quantitative revolution has to face many criticism, and that's why, say, the supporters, say, systematically led to some other branches which gives rise to new understandings about the world also, right? Like in the terms of behavioralism, like in the terms of welfareism, and, say, other aspects, right? So this is what the phases of quantitative evolution. The first phase started from say 19th century, or say the genesis phase 18 to 1950. Then the second zenith phase, it was more active. You will find number of theories were proposed. Okay, so it was the second phase, and the third declining phase 70s, and afterwards it is what gaining momentum slowly. Okay, so which are those? Say the kind of examples you can write it over here in the answer. Okay, just because questions will be there are number of questions on this. Say if you have gone to the previous paper. So the first phase, the phase 1, you will find the same warm Thunen model of agriculture. Right, we will be discussing under the head models on theories. Right, then Weber's industrial model, economic model. Then migration laws of Ravenstein. 10 laws were proposed by the Ravenstein, and all they are under the category of quantitative evolution. Though he was not aware exactly of the quantitative evolution, but yes, it was under the same, right? Then 15 to 50s, yes, settlement geography, rank size rule of zip, okay, zip. Then primate city model, primate city concept, then some economic model, etc. Those were proposed during the same time. Okay, then phase 2, zenith phase. Here you will find number of models. Gravity, which I already told you. Then distance decay law, yes, distance decay law. As you are the students of geographer, you are quite aware about that. With increasing distance, okay, with increasing distance from the market, you will find a decline in the spending, or say overall economic values of the product also, right? So that is what distance decay, Losch model, the sphere of urban influence, and you can say add further few more. Okay, but you need to keep these things in mind. Okay, whenever you will be writing the overall answer for the quantitative revolution, you have to keep this names of the models, okay, or models in the mind. Phase 3, declining. Now after 76, it was having many limitations of the quantitative evolution, or QR approach was say observed, and that's why it slowly lose the ground and pay the way for the next revolution as such. Okay, the next revolution as such, and that is what say we will be discussing later. Next, advantages of quantitative evolution. I think everyone is quite clear with the understanding of the quantitative evolution. Okay, what exactly it means, why there was a need arise to say for the quantitative evolution, then what is the different approach or methodologies that involved in, then later the different phases. Okay, different phases, the geographer you just can't forget, okay, to keep it in mind. Then now the advantages, disadvantages. Okay, now the whole discussion is about the understandings of the quantitative revolution. Now the question remains, what is the utility, final utility of the subject then? What is the final utility of this kind of drastic change in the overall nature of the geography? Okay, so advantages, have a look over that. Yes, why not? Any change, okay, any change in any subject or even in our life also, right? It helps us to learn something. Why not, right? Even it may be a small change, you will find it gives you a understanding about yourself. Same is the case with the QR also, that as quantitative evolution was added in geography, it gives geography a new dimension to understand itself, new dimension to say evolve herself, and that is what it say blended this mathematical approach into it, and it improved the functional relevance of geography. Why not? If you want to establish an industry, you can use the Weber's model of industrial location. If you want to say a planned urban say region like smart city mission, you can use the models of urban influence or morphological models or those kind of. If you want to manage the migration, okay, you know in India almost 37% Indians are migratory, right? So you can use the gravity model or you can use the Ravenstein model to plan your region accordingly. Regional planning is one of the most important, say the aspect or area which facilitated by the quantitative evolution as such, right? So it leads a new life to geography. No doubt it was under threat during that time. They has moved geography from that threat, and it is still a subject of relevance now. Okay, then geography became a well structured and geographical ideas. No doubt, yes, it just because it has given it a well structured understanding, data collection, data utilizations, mathematics, and application to the society. So yes, it found say its relevance. Then it developed an objectivity Earlier geography, or say it was subjective or descriptive. It somehow needs to be studied in, say, classroom itself. But no, with objectivity you can apply that knowledge to, say, outside environment also, and that is what it makes this more objective, okay, universal, generalized in nature. Then it helps in describing, analyzing and simplifying the geographical systems. Then and now being able to use primary information and are no more dependent on secondary and tertiary sources such as other science. That geography has her own subject matter, that has her own understanding to deal with the problem. So it is not supposed to, as I told you, that geography was routing the solution to the problem by indirect means, right? So that is what the case. Now geography is taking active role to solve the problems of society, okay, and that is what the benefit that quantitative revolution offered. Then models capable of developing scientific theories and models, yes, so it was appealing on the count. Then the planners, as I told you, you will find the more significance in terms of the overall regional planning. That is what topic of our syllabus of regional planning and development, okay, so it helped a lot. But as you know, coin has two sides, yes. Quantitative revolution bring a significant change in the overall geographical understanding and knowledge. The thing is, it has led to some, say, adverse consequences or negative consequences in the back students. Okay, what are those? Just have a look over. It just bring human to a simple point or geographical line, and distance or a region as a single line as such, and that makes the overall human geography as more, say, as it is moving away from the human core itself. Okay, it just because over here, as you know, there are no normative values are to be considered, emotions, values, okay, principles and those things. So human, his values, his overall understanding society was considered of no values, and that's why it was severely criticized. It was severely criticized, right? So it just brings man became a point on the surface only, but it is absolutely not. Man is more active agent than a simple point. Okay, then it rejected the man and his normative questions. Wolpert, okay, he was one of the proponent of welfare geography also. So he severely criticized this approach, that this thing, man is not economic and rational always, right? And the same thing, that man has, say, and his normative values were degraded over in the quantitative revolution. Okay, man is not always rational as such. Then if that would be the case, why those agriculture farmers are selling their produce at the lower price? If man is always rational, so farmer must be. If the farmer is always rational, so why is selling his product at a lower price? Why is deciding it just for the sake of small, say, bunch of rupees, okay, a small value of rupees as such, right? So man at every location or space and time, you won't find him rational as such, and that approach was absolutely criticized. We will be discussing in the later welfare geography and behavioralism as such. So it was done. Then isotropic surface, it is absolutely an ideal concept. You know, just move outside your room, just move outside your house, you will find the whole surface is having some irregularities, some differences, right? Do you find this plane surface as a whole? Absolutely not. Okay, I suppose you won't find this plane surface, right? So it must have some kind of upliftment, some depression, this and this, mountain, plateau, plains, lakes, rivers, okay, different types of rock, aluminium, silica, magnesium and different types of rocks. Okay, so the whole surface cannot be considered as isotropic in nature, and if you do consider it, you will rather avoiding the reality, and if you avoid the reality, the result would be more diverted. Okay, it would be more diverted, and that's why this was again criticized. Then it is seen as one of the economic determinism. I think you are quite aware about the determinism approach. Yes, man is just a pawn in the hands of nature. Man is just a passive element in the overall nature understanding, man and nature relationship. So over here in the economic determinism, that economics define the overall man's behavior. That is what this quantitative revolution is trying to convey, or mathematics, or it is also what spatial determination, okay, or it is also quantitative determination. That is what to be called as. that it just the thing is quantity or mathematics, it all defines the behavior of man or man and environment relationship, and that relationship is not as simple as this trying to define it. It is much more complex in nature. Okay, so this approach and demand reliable data, you know that it demands a reliable data. Just because to arrive at a say a pinpointed conclusion, it's just because you want to provide a solution. In that case, absolutely you should have a reliable data, and in the absence of reliable data, you will find your result would be more diluted, and that's why the thing is there is a need for reliable data. And in the country like India, okay, or like us, you know the reliability of data. Yes, many times the data or the collected data are even more in collection than the number of people those are living over here. Okay, it's just because to a large extent human behavior, wherever human behavior is involved, you cannot generalize it. That is what they say, the statement of Sachs. Okay, so that's why say there are some demerits of quantitative evolution, and it brings this kind of changes. But yes, you just cannot neglect the quantitative evolution overall on the count it is laid say a geography kind of different approach, a different foundation, right? Earlier facts and figures were neglected to a large extent, but now you will find those are say well respected as such. Okay, so scientific understanding in geography, yes, it makes geography more say more self sustaining, less dependent on other subject, right? But yes, it also leads to a limitation over on this approach. Absolutely, no approach is 100% perfect, right? But yes, the final conclusion whenever you will be writing an answer, okay, that often a combination of the quantitative and qualitative approach is more satisfactory to bring out a tangible results on the surface, and that's why say this say overall quantitative revolution, it holds its own significance. Okay, so whenever you will be writing, just don't try to be more extremist, okay, on the any count, maybe in terms of merits or maybe in terms of demerits, just try to be more balanced. Okay, that even if quantitative revolution is gaining or losing its ground, still it say gave a geography a new approach, and we can solve or we can understand the problems of society by means of quantitative as well as qualitative understanding, and this lead to a new revolution in this age. Okay, and thus yes, and as I told you, it gives rise to a new approach as I say, behavioralism, okay, or welfare geography. These are all later the outcome, okay, in order to criticize the quantitative revolution. That's why you just cannot say neglect the quantitative revolution overall. So this is all about this topic, quantitative revolution, one of the most important topic in geography, perspective on human geography as such. Okay, so I think everyone is quite clear. We have seen the basics, we have seen the definition, we have seen the approach, we have seen the geographers, those let's say contributed for, then the phases of the quantitative revolution, advantages, disadvantages or demerits, and then finally conclusion, what you are supposed to write ultimately. Okay, so this is all from my side. Thank you and have a good time. Time ज़्यादा हो गया?